All right, so while we're all getting up on stage, welcome. So let me introduce everyone to the best of my abilities and kind of touch on why I've set the topic to be this. So in China, we've already seen open source take root and take the world by storm, especially in the realm of AI. A lot of foundation models are becoming open source, and I feel like open source is now more part of the vernacular than ever. So this is something that, in the creative space, I want to bring to everyone's attention, and that's why I've, arranged this panel meticulously. So let me try to introduce Blender, Godot, and Penpot to everyone. So Blender, I think most of everyone knows by now, is a free and open source 3D creation tool. It has features like real-time rendering with its Eevee engine, geometry nodes that everyone seems to love. And China is, according to Blender statistics, the third-ranked country in terms of visits to blender.org. So we love Blender. And there's one Blender download every 3 seconds, I think, as Francesco mentioned, which is crazy. And in 2023, there were 17 million downloads. So it's really, really popular. We also have Godot, and Godot is a general purpose 2D and 3D game engine, and it's easy to learn. You've got GD script. You can also work with C#, C++. And recently, for the Blender audience, because we're at a BCON, Blender's open project was a combination between Blender and Godot, Dogwalk, free to play on Steam. Everyone can try it out. And it really showcases the ability of open source tools to be compatible and work with each other. And finally, Penpot, as we just saw, it's a web-based design tool, and it bridges the gaps between designers and developers. And Blender also uses Penpot for their UI design, which is how we got in touch with you guys. So, all right, so that's my introduction, but I also want to let you guys introduce, maybe with a minute of time, your role at these organizations to give a bit of background for our audience. Go along the panel.
All right. Hello, I'm Ilena Pegan, and I'm the project manager for Godot Foundation.
I'm Pablo Ruiz-Múzquiz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Penpot.
I am Francesco Siddi. I am CEO and next month CEO at Blender. Very soon.
Exciting. All right. So let's first address the elephant in the room, which is being that we're at an AI and creativity conference, right? I want to get everyone's feel on, how your organization, how your software, how your project engages with AI. I feel like there is, especially in the West, a palpable tension between how AI, the promises of generative AI, and how we can preserve human creativity in the midst of that. I want to get a sense of how your organizations approach this, and what's your philosophy on integrating AI into creative workflows without supplanting the artists. I would like to get maybe an idea from each of you on this. Yeah, maybe starting with Francesco.
So I think it's been now, maybe it's a couple of years that the question comes up. So since we really started to see Gen AI models becoming more versatile and also more affordable, that people ask, okay, what does this mean for Blender? And I find it interesting because I keep being asked the question, I keep thinking of the answer, and the answer evolves a little bit. But there is a fundamental aspect of, okay, let's still wait a little bit to see what is happening. Like at first, when really it started to be obvious that it would be so easy to just implement some, text box in Blender to generate textures or to generate even images, we said, okay, let's wait and see a little bit what happens, because there are so many questions about how are these models trained, where is the IP coming from? Like that, I think, is also one of the biggest concerns that people have, the ethical implications and also the legal implications of the training of the models. I think it's pretty obvious, but it's important to say. that a lot of these things are not really even kind of signed off legally to say, okay, this is actually a fine approach to take everybody's, the work of the entire world and turn it into a model that then everyone can query and get things out of it. But even, if you leave that aside, you just want to see how this technology evolves and then try to figure out how that fits within the Blender workflows. And with time, some things have become a little bit clearer. That, conceptually now I think of this as layers. So the idea could be that, having the ability to take user-generated content, so regular artwork that you make, and then use some levels of automation or extension that are, instead of being driven by regular algorithmic tool, but something that is more machine learning based, inference based, or something else. But you can still combine it. So it's like you can keep these things separate and you can edit them before and after. That is theoretically how we think about this. In practice, Blender uses the noising algorithms. So for when you're rendering with a path tracer to remove noise, those are machine learning models, and they are there 10 years before everybody was very excited about AI. So you can do more of those things, and I think that with Blender we would like to explore more of this. It's just that resource-wise, we don't have a lot of time to do it, and the more you get into the generative part, where you really say, okay, I have a prompt and I generate something out of it, like that's the part where it becomes more and more controversial. And before we get there are so many useful things that can be done that I am not really, I don't feel like we should accelerate towards that. There are like so many other steps, like upscaling, denoising, some, machine learning posing, character posing, like object segmentation for visual effects. So many practical uses that can be done. And I think that these are like all interesting things that we think about. And again, like we have to prioritize them with many other features that users need and that we think in our roadmap are even more important than that. That people almost seem to forget, because now it's like, okay, where is the AI? Give me the AI now. And it's like, well, you don't only need that. There are other things that you needed before and you still need them today. So that's a little bit like the overview for Blender and the AI.
So very quickly, first, we won't treat our users as stupid people, but rather as adults. And if we find something that we don't know about or we cannot predict, we won't try to predict it. The second thing is that there are some things that won't change, and it's our obsession about building bridges, about connecting different disciplines. In our case, in our world, Pempot is creating a bridge between the design and the engineering. That won't change. But what has changed with the advent of LLMs, and I want to stress LLMs in particular, and not just say AI, but in this case for us it's very important that we are specific, is that we have decided that we perhaps cannot predict the future of how people will use a tool like Pempot to build the next generation of software, the next generation of user interfaces. And instead of trying to shape it ourselves, that is very, let's be a bit more humble. And the way we approach it is to make sure that we are compatible with any possible future. And for that, in terms of the product, that means that we have to be a platform that can be extended by other people with their own ideas, making sure that they keep ownership and control and sovereignty over what they build. That is the fundamental principle. And I think 3 years ago, if you have asked me, what do you think Pempot is going to be by 2027, I would have a very concrete answer. Today, I still have a concrete answer, but it's one that says, since I don't know, I want you to decide. And that, when you are building a product, means that you have to be very open to not build everything, but let other people build on top of you. So I think LLMs have accelerated that mindset of Pempot as a platform.
Well, I think when it comes to open source, what makes it stand out so much is that it's built by community and for the community. And currently within Godot, our community is not asking for AI. We don't have foundation members who are interested currently. So as all of our priorities are met from consensus among team members and volunteers and contributors, it's not currently moving in that direction. Not to say it's not possible. We do know there are people working on plugins to make a Copilot-like plugin for GD script. So there are ways in adapting using this technology outside of the core.
Until this turns on. I think at the heart of all the responses is giving autonomy back to the artists, the users, the community, and facilitating and having an expectant attitude. And let's see how things go. I think that's great. So I want to move on to thinking about kind of a different side of these open source projects, how to make it happen, running it. And I want to think about things like communities and your business models, and with that context, how we can steer the ship. Because I think it's important to understand how these projects work. I want to challenge Pablo with my first question, because Kaleidos operates on more of a service-based model, if that's accurate, which is more, I call it that, but it's to distinguish it from the more donation-based model or sponsorship model of other open source foundations. Could you elaborate on why you chose this path?
For sure, I can share why we are not choosing this path after we went product-based, because that was the original business model for Kaleidos. Kaleidos is the company creating PenPod, right? And Kaleidos was co-founded in 2011. And we would build technology for other companies, for the startups. And that was a service, you're right, that was the service model. Eventually, we created our own tools. First, we created Taiga, which is an open source project management tool. And then we created PenPod, which is a UI design tool, open source as well, since we are an open source company. And then we decided to just do open source and just do PenPod. The business model for PenPod is neither services, neither open core. The open source, the business model for PenPod, which is going to be released in Q2 next year, is what we call the open nitrate model. And this is unique to open source. You can look it online. You will see my own article because it is our own invention. And the open nitrate model says this: you create value by giving away the most advanced open source product to everyone. You are generous to the maximum. The best product is PenPod. PenPod is open source. All of the advanced features are there. You pay, or in business model vocabulary, you capture value when someone wants to restrict and redefine exactly how PenPod operates within an organization. If you are limiting the freedom that PenPod gives you by default, then you have to pay. So if for whatever reason, it could be a perfectly valid reason, your organization requires that the way PenPod is used is not the default PenPod advanced mode, but actually some way of restricting sharing prototypes because the intellectual property, for instance, is critical, or you want to shut down the MCP server, or only a set of plugins are allowed, so through a whitelist of plugins. Whatever form of restriction on the standard PenPod features occurs, you have to activate a proprietary add-on that you have to pay. So basically, if you are happy with open source and the most advanced model, it's free for everyone. If you are to constrain it, then you have to pay. So if you're a big organization that have a lot of people that you want to decide on behalf, then you pay more. So it's a per seat subscription model that basically captures value out of the necessity of controlling the design process at scale, which is something strategically important for organizations. So this is something that we'll see if it works. We hope it works. It is quite unique. I'm not saying this might work for all open source products, but we feel it is very simple and elegant because you give away your best product and you capture value from the people that need to restrict it. So I think that's great.
Awesome. All right. We can't wait. Yeah. And for Ilena, Godot is more community-driven and more funded by donations. I feel like this gives advantages in terms of flexibility and servicing the community, but it might come with its challenges. Has that come up in your work or how you see Godot developing in the future?
Challenges?
Yeah.
I have experienced challenges in my short time so far. I think what often comes up will be building forward with the resources that we have at hand. We are built in big part by our volunteering community. A lot of people come in first, like I was hooked with Godot because it's free, and as a game developer, no matter how many games you sell, you don't need to give a percentage to Godot. So a lot of us often come in as consumers, and then eventually, if you're fortunate enough, you get to begin to create and participate in the community and even become part of the leadership. And this means that, of course, our contributors are very passionate, and that comes with navigating how to balance this passion with the overall goals of the engine. Yeah.
I think Blender's model is somewhat more hybrid, where you do have donations and sponsorships, but also, say, Blender Studio, which is more of a kind of subscription donation in a way. How does that hybrid kind of change how you view, funding and your business model?
Yeah, I think that for the studio, it's really like the funding for Blender is challenging in a way as well, because and I think that there is also a very big difference in what you would call software as a service or web service based technologies versus purely desktop level technologies when it comes to monetization and like business models. So, for example, I'm also very interested in the approach that Pablo and the Tempo team have come up with. And when I was reading the first articles, I was really wondering, okay, how would this apply to Blender? What would you have to do? And it's really hard. It doesn't work that well. So we have to find other ways to do this. And I mentioned it also in my presentation, like we try to diversify the funding as much as possible. So even when you say donations can come in all sorts of forms, from individuals, from companies. Usually companies, they have a very hard time dealing with the concept of donation. So then you need to somewhat find the right formula to communicate, okay, we really would like to get some money with as little strings attached as possible. And companies, they even see benefit in supporting the project. So it's really up to building the right relationships with the right people in the organization. When the organizations are so big, it can be very challenging. Also more institutional government level funding. So that all is kind of indeed funding that comes in that way. The studio was established, was actually the primary funding mean for Blender for many years because we were relying on the very easy concept of we create a product, which is a film plus a bunch of assets, so very innovative, very creative product. And then in exchange, we will also develop Blender. But it was more for people about, yeah, you were getting Blender improvements, but also you were getting something for yourself, because people love to get something for themselves. So that is really, you are selling a product. The challenge with that is that you are also making a product that is not Blender. You're making a film, you're making training, you're making documentation, you're making content. And you try to be efficient about it, or you can be effective about it. But really, if you want to make a very good product, then ideally you should invest everything in the product itself. And so using like what the studio does today is very much focused on sharing the production knowledge, but it's only in part contributing to Blender development. And it could not possibly sustain Blender development as it is. And so I think that while it is super interesting, sometimes I wish that we could even support the studio activities with Blender donations so that everything would be free. And instead now we have to indeed sell it and make people pay for it. But it is something that we're not really ready to do because it's already very challenging to fund Blender development as it is, and we don't want to put that burden on top of the project as well. So, but it is, yeah, so I would say that it's something that will need to be reevaluated in the years to come, because this is something that we've been doing for almost 20 years now, and the picture is very different. So, yeah.
I think that's a great segue into how those projects that are created by the Blender Studio drives the development of the software itself forward. And it's not just about, projects that are developed by the development team, but also by the community, by artists, by developers who are there, who are finding new ways to apply your project, your tools, and then those become kind of the showcase that your product works or your project works. So could I maybe invite Francesco maybe to talk about the relationship of the open movie projects and now even game projects or others, and how that drives development forward?
Yeah, this is the content-driven development model. I think that everyone here also can relate, right? You dog feed yourself, like I don't know what's the correct expression, but you really use the tool yourself to do what the tool is meant to be for, and that has always been a guiding principle. It's also inspired by the film industry at large. When you look at innovation in technology for creative uses, it was because somebody wanted to achieve something aesthetically or storytelling-wise that was not possible before, and they invented the technology to make that possible. And that is always the initial spark that starts that process. And then, of course, as you want to share this with more people, you have to put some extra work to make it really usable by others. But I think that this is still the best way to make any kind of product and any kind of tool. And it has been instrumental in Blender development. And nowadays, with the community being so large, I think it's challenging and also very important to be receptive of also what everybody out there does with the tool. Yet, you cannot make everyone happy. And the more users you have, the more unhappy people you will have. And it's unavoidable because, and especially the more, beginners, like people that just start with 3D, they're like, I want this to be easy, make it easier for me. But Blender was not meant to be easy, ever. It was meant to be a productive tool, like for making, high efficiency work. And so, like, at the same time, you can always learn from so many people that ask you to simplify some things. So it's again a balancing act, but the whole concept of developing content has been super important for Blender since day one, and it continues being very important. Yeah.
So the case of PenPod is a bit special because we created PenPod for ourselves. Kaleidos, the company, had a lot of designers and a lot of developers that did not find the right tools out there. They were either proprietary tools, or if they were open source, they were not exactly to do UI design. So we decided to build that internal tool for ourselves. Eventually, we started designing PenPod within PenPod, but initially the idea was to design other products with PenPod. Why is this important? It's important because we had an idea of what we wanted the product to be. And that idea doesn't necessarily match what the outside world expects. When in the UI design ecosystem, you have to understand that for the past 15 years, only one tool is the reigning tool every time. We had the InVision cycle, then we had the Sketch cycle, and then we had the Figma cycle. This is really weird in someone from me that comes from the development and science world, where you have multiple options every single time, and you can pick. But not in the UI design world. It looks like everyone has to use the tool. And so when you come up with a new tool, what do you think people are going to say? You have to be like the tool. You have to copy the tool and then be cooler, I guess. And we are like, perhaps we need to be familiar. We need to show a familiar user interface so that the learning curve is not that steep. But please respect our vision. we don't want to copy what is already there. We want to go beyond. So at Penpot, we have this constant tension between what the community wants because they know what they are using today and what we think is better for them, treating them as adults anyway, but we think it's better for the future selves. And this constant tension is actually healthy because it ensures that you innovate and at the same time you can connect the dots. People can see that is, okay, I understand your metaphor, like you saw the presentation, like it looks familiar, but then you are expressing declarative design, semantic design, and it's like aha moments start to come. So this is something that we have to deal with, and we have, as Francesco said, when you have more users, you have more unhappy users, very passionate, unhappy users, I'd say. But I think if they trust you, and because they see that you have conviction, that you have an idea that you want to execute, they can be patient. They can be patient, and then you show them, and then they contribute to that, and then you have this distributed innovation that is, of course, much bigger than just copycatting the status quo, which is not what we wanted to do in the first place.
How the community of artists and developers that you're engaging with, how their needs and wants and desires kind of drive your product forward, and also whether any in-house projects are playing a role in that.
Right, yes, well, I think I've already tapped into how important what our community wants feeds into where the engine heads. And for studios who are looking for a very specific tool within Godot, if it's not currently met, there are obvious ways to contribute, either contribute developer time or sponsor to push the engine into the direction that you're looking for. With discontent, we have a GitHub proposals page, which I highly recommend opening a proposal. It's important for us to hear what isn't working, so we know what direction to move into.
Thank you. So I want to end with a quick fire round for everyone. So let's imagine you're in an elevator with a young artist or developer, which might happen, today. Why should they choose your open source tool over proprietary software like Maya or Figma or Unreal? Give us your kind of 1 minute pitch.
How many floors is the elevator? Okay. All right. So if I have like one liner, it's like with Blender, you have the freedom to create. What does freedom to create mean to you? And then I can get out of the elevator. And then they will think, what is the freedom to, I have freedom. Do I? Like, are tools free? Like, is the fact that it's free and I don't have to pay for it, does it mean that I have the freedom or that the tool is free? So I think that that's like fundamentally, like the fundamental level. And I think it's really about a tool that you can own and that is yours and that really enables you to do what you want with it. So I think that that's what Blender is all about, and this works both for an artist, but also if you're a developer, even if you're a business person. Like, Blender is a stepping stone for you into the market. You can make yourself with it. So that's it.
I basically would ask two questions. I say, are you really passionate? Are you engaged with this idea of multidisciplinary collaboration when you're building technology? Yes. Would you really like to own that process? Would you really want to feel that you are part of it, that you are not imposed a solo player or a specific type of collaboration? Would you be passionate about owning that? Yes. Okay. Then Penpot embodies that for software development. Use it.
I'm going to act like it's a really long elevator ride. From personal experience, what I found to really enjoy about Godot was I found a lot of joy again as a developer. GD script is, look, if you're a big nerd and you want to use Rust, you can use Rust with Godot, but you can also use GD script. It's very, as somebody who's habitually an incredible if tree statement user, code is accessible. And there are small things, huge advantages of being able to work on your game and have the editor all in one place. Like you can drag and drop your references into the, I don't know, that's pretty, there are things about it. And also like, if you notice, oh, I wish it was a little better this way, there's ways to participate in making sure that happens. And I think there are pros to all of the engines. We don't necessarily benefit from people using the engine. So really it matters of like, what is it you are looking for? You can do 2D, you can do 3D. It's a small file to download, so you don't need to upgrade your hardware necessarily, and that's something we really care about, is making sure it's accessible. And being able to have the freedom to create offline as well, that's been great, and I think we saw this with Blender too, of people working on projects on airplanes. I've done the same thing with game jams. It's the excitement of being able to do something that has so much flexibility.
We've arrived on the 88th floor. Thank you. So I think that's all the time we have. I think my final personal message for everyone is to remind everyone that open source isn't free, and it takes effort from everyone to keep these tools, keep these teams, alive, and to do the work that they do. So everyone should contribute in their own way, whether it's being part of the community, the ecosystem, sponsoring, donating. There's always ways to work on these projects and develop and be part of all these great tools. All right. So thank you to our guests. Thank you.
Thank you.